Yo, what's up? Welcome to my channel, Sober BMS. That's sober body, mind, and soul. And, my main goal of my channel is to help people struggling through recovery by sharing my own experiences. Um, but I also like to talk about all the things that I've learned in relation to mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. So today, I guess this video would fall more into the spiritual category. And the reason I was inspired to talk about it is just because I was listening to, I think it was Frank Turek. I'm not exactly sure though. And he was making arguments about how much faith atheists have, actually, how much faith atheists have to believe the things that they believe. And it was really interesting, and it got me thinking about some things that I guess I hadn't thought about in a minute, and they started clicking and falling into place. So I'm not even claiming that I'm having some sort of unique ideas here, but I'm sure they come from people like Frank and Jordan Peterson and Daily Dose of Wisdom and all the other influences that I have. And of course, from hearing the debates of people that I disagree with, like Sam Harris and Matt Dilahunty and Alex O'Connor. Although I have to say I have a huge amount of respect for Alex O'Connor. I would love the opportunity to have a discussion with him for my own personal gratification, not because I think I have anything to offer to the universe or to the world, although I do think we could have a good conversation. But yeah, it would just to be able to sit down and have a or honestly, I don't even drink coffee that much. I'd prefer tea. I'm sure he might also, being from fucking across the pond, he might want some tea too. So yeah, some tea with Alex O'Connor would be fucking lit. That would be dope. But anyways, yeah, I'm more on the Christian side, but those are some of the people that have certainly been, inspiring me to think recently. And so there's this idea that I was thinking, and the more that I think about it, the more that I'm almost certain that I've heard someone make this argument before too. But anyways, just the reality that God, it's so crazy. Like, you want to make an argument, and then you want to make sure you say it the correct way, and then you start fucking, excuse my French, brain farting, and all of a sudden you're just like, wait, can I even do this? Oh man. But yeah, so anyways, there's this idea that in order to exercise, that's what it is. There's this idea that in order to exercise logic and reason, that you would have to have free will. And I actually forget, because I'm almost positive I've heard someone make this argument to like Matt Dilahunty or to Sam Harris or to someone like that before, and I forget what their argument against it was. And if I could look up the video and just watch it myself so I could think about what they had to say, then I wouldn't be in this position, obviously. But yeah, this idea is that, like, okay, well, if you have no free will, then that would mean that you're just condemned to think in a certain way based on your experiences and your programming essentially throughout life. And so if you are thinking based on your programming, that you automatically can't call it rational, even if it looks rational, even if you're pretty convinced that the way you're living is the most rational way, you can't call it rationality. You have to call it automaton, programmed unthinking, which is the exact opposite of rationality. To be rational requires you to be able to make choices in your own thought. Like, that's like, it's so just blatantly obvious on the face of it. And when that all clicked in my mind, like, and what's crazy is that I might have heard someone make that argument before ages ago, and it never clicked. And then randomly hearing Frank Turek talk about how much faith atheists have, all of a sudden, like, this argument comes back out of like the ether of my brain, and I'm like, wait a second, you literally. And I'm actually not even sure what about that particular argument made me think about free will, but it did. So that's why I'm here. And so I was literally like, it was like, the Reddit shower thoughts thing. I was like literally laying in the tub listening to videos, and I was like having these fucking light bulb moments where I was just like, but yeah. So either which way, logic and reason require you to have free will. There's no way around it. You cannot exercise logic unless you can make the choice to choose the rational thing over the irrational thing. So if you can't make choices, then you can't be rational. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see any way around that. And then beyond that, it's like, what else? This was linking into more. Like I had more that I wanted to say about this. I mean, I have this Alan Watts thing up here. I guess it's so. I'm just trying to like think about where I wanted to go with this. Maybe I should restart the video. I don't know. I like the way this one has gone. There's like my third take or something already. But anyways, so the Alan Watts quote that I have here, it says, belief. Well, I guess we should say most people, when they talk about faith and belief, when people talk about belief, they talk about justified true beliefs. This means that there is some sort of empirical data that allows them to consider their belief justified and true. So when people talk about belief, I would say that's usually how they're using the word. And when people talk about faith, I would say it's honestly probably fair, the atheist claim, that for most people faith means belief in something that they can't see. I have to say it begrudgingly so, but I think it's probably fair to say. However, for the more philosophically inclined, I do think that that we can go deeper with the idea, and Alan Watts does a great job of sort of getting us going. In his book, The Wisdom of Insecurity, there's a quote. I had to find it on some random page. But anyways, belief, as I use the word here, is the instance that truth is what one would leaf or wish it to be. The believer will open his mind to the truth on the condition that it fits in with his preconceived ideas and wishes. Faith, on the other hand, is an unreserved opening of the mind to the truth, whatever it may turn out to be. Faith has no preconceptions. It is a plunge into the unknown. Belief clings, but faith lets go. In this sense of the word, faith is the essential virtue of science, and likewise of any religion that is not self-deception. And so this brings me to, the thing about Christians, and the question that I'm asking is, what do we have faith in? Do we have faith in the man Yeshua, whose name was translated to Jesus Christ, who we made a religion out of? We have faith in the words in a book I guess in a sense, kind of. But beyond even the words in the book is the spirit of what the words are saying. And and I think what we really have faith in is the spirit of Yeshua's teachings. We you can say you have faith in the man Yeshua, who is God, that the most important scripture in the Bible is that you must believe with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and or believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord, and confess with your mouth that God raised him from the dead. You can believe that that is the most important thing in the Bible. But I think that turns it into the less valuable version. I mean, I think that is why I have to begrudgingly admit that most Christians would have to say that belief, or that faith to them means belief in something that they can't see, and that they believe as they wish something to be, more so than as it actually is. And I think that when you realize that if you switch the concept to what are the thing that I have faith in is the spirit of Christ's teachings, that is to say that if I were to actually try to be like him, that I would get closer to God. And so we have faith that moral principles, that applying them as perfectly as we can in our own lives will lead to better outcomes. And that is coming into this part where belief clings but faith lets go. In this, faith has no preconceptions. It's a plunge into the unknown. It's like if you believe that you're good because you've accepted that Jesus Christ is Lord and that you are saved, then I don't know what your faith is based on other than self-righteousness. Whereas if you apply the principles that Jesus taught, if you say, well, I believe that murdering people will lead to better outcomes. I believe that not being jealous, not being resentful, not having hate in my heart, I believe all these things will lead to better outcomes. So I'm going to try to practice all these different, essentially, lifestyle habits that will allow me to transcend negative emotions and nourish positive emotions. I'm going to try to capture so interestingly enough, I think that we can become possessed by like you look at the Bible and the 7 deadly sins, and these are all negative emotions that can possess us, right? And so the question is, if you have no morals, are you actually free? Because you're having sex whenever you want, getting high whenever you want, taking whatever you want, being angry at whatever you want. Or are you actually trapped? Because you'll notice that if you've been the type of person that lives that way, you aren't like choosing. You have to do these things. You have to get high. You have to have sex. You have to respond in the way that you do when you're angry. Like everything you want to talk about justified true beliefs, everything that you believe is justified. And the reality is that you're like on a different planet, and and pretty much nothing that you believe is justified. But either which way, you're not free. You're completely captured by your own base desires, and you have to make these terrible decisions. And that's why people that get into so much trouble, they're constantly saying, I don't know. People say, why did you do it? And they just, I don't know. I can't explain. Like I was overwhelmed. They have to say shit like I blacked out and I don't remember why I did it. And in reality, it's like yeah, you were overwhelmed. And I mean, maybe in some cases with like anger, you do black out. I'm not going to argue about that experience. I've never had that experience, but I'm not going to argue that people that claim that are lying. But like you whether you actually black out or not, you become so overwhelmed, and it could be horniness. Like you've seen the movie Black Snake Moan. Like it could be horniness that has you overwhelmed. It could be anger that has you overwhelmed. It could be sorrow. It could be any number. It could be jealousy. It could be any number of emotions that get you to the point where you're no longer the one who's sitting in the driver's seat. And so you look at moral principles, and they're all designed to essentially give you sovereignty over your own emotions. And so it's like the idea, it's so funny because people think that they're getting autonomy by rejecting Sky Daddy, when in reality it's the complete opposite, you know. And you know, you're gaining and that's what's so funny. It's like I actually think that Nietzsche in Thus Spoke Zarathustra with the three metamorphoses of the soul, I think that was actually, it's so funny because Jordan Peterson has told to Sam, like, if it's so easy to rewrite a secular ethic that can endure the ages, then do it, you know. Write a story that teaches the secular ethic that will appeal to the masses and endure the ages. And Sam, you know, obviously can't do it. And then you look at Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and I think most people, because Nietzsche was critical of Christianity, would never think that Thus Spoke Zarathustra was his attempt at rewriting the Bible story into a secular ethic. But there's this idea, the dragon of thou shalt, right? And it's like on his scales are like every commandment that could ever be. And the thing is, in order to slay the dragon and, you know, create a vulnerable spot where you can actually stick your sword in, you have to A, be willing to sacrifice a part of yourself, but B, you know, you have to find the right scale to remove. You have to find the right principle. So if you have all these commandments, thou shalt, all these principles, and there's only a couple that if you remove them will allow you to slay the dragon, but they'll require you, you know, to give up a piece of yourself in order to do it. Like that is you choosing a principle, like, okay, I'm not going to feel jealousy. I'm not going to allow myself to be too horny. I'm not going to allow myself to steal. I'm not going to allow myself to be violent, blah, 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 blah. This is you giving up part of yourself. You're giving up part of your human experience, but it's allowing you to slay all the other commandments. You must have sex. You must be high. You must go there. You must be here. You must do this. You must do that. And, you know, so when you slay the dragon of thou shalt, you have a return to childlike innocence and the freedom to create again, to be human. And that's the most human thing is your creativity. So either which way, I guess I'm rambling at this point, but it's so interesting to me, this idea that, you know, in reality, the thing that atheists find to be the most important aspect of secular humanism, logic and reason, that the ability to exercise both logic and reason requires you to have free will. And I guess I'm going to have to go look up, see if I can find a debate with Dilahunty or whoever and see if I can hear them arguing why you don't need free will to be rational. I'm on the verge of laughing just thinking about it because I can't imagine how you could possibly make that argument. Like, and I don't even mean from the cheeky, oh, now they're making an argument for divine providence joke that I made. I just legitimately, at the most rational, like the most basic sense, like if you were condemned to think and act based on your conditioning, then nothing you could do is rational or irrational. It just is. You didn't make the choice. So there was no rationality involved. Like, you're simply claiming that based on, and then this would be like an Andrew Wilson argument. But I mean, it truly is. They're just claiming that based on their preferences, that they're the rational ones, and I guess nature just made it that way. The fuck, like, so silly. So silly. Oh man. Oh man. So yeah, I think when we consider that the value of our faith comes from learning how every time we apply a moral lesson in our life and we say, well, rather than clinging to my belief that I have to lie right now, that's my only choice is to lie because whatever reason, this person's going to hate me if I don't. That you choose to say, well, even if in the short term, my life is going to be harder dealing with the argument that's about to ensue, in the long term, I will be better off for having been honest. And sometimes you'll never know. Sometimes you'll literally, like, for example, there was this girl that when I was in my 20s, I was like maybe like 22 or something. And I really liked her, and we always flirted. We worked together, and it was my birthday, and she was buying me a shot, and like we were gonna go back to my house after that. Like it was, I'm not gonna say that we would have like hooked up, but like we would have. Well, I mean, we probably would have hooked up. I'm not gonna say we would have had sex though. But anyway, I'd wanted that for a long time, and I like her friend who. I didn't even know that she didn't like this person. Like, I legit thought they were friends based on their work relationship. But I guess she actually had a falling out. I don't know. But she had, like, showed up at my house for some reason and started making out with me. And, like, I don't even know. I have no idea. I have no words for why, how, or, like, what even. I didn't hit her up. Like, she literally showed up. I answered the door, and she started making out with me. Literally, like, this has to have been some sort of girl math deceptive plot that is beyond my ability to compute. But we're at the bar, and like she's buying me a shot, and I felt bad, and I was like, oh, I should tell her, like. And I thought it was a good thing. I thought by telling her, like, oh, I made out with this chick, that because it's not like we were together, like. I didn't think it was gonna, and I thought they were friends. Like I literally didn't think it was gonna be a big deal. Like I just thought it was. I better be honest. It wasn't even a God thing. Like I wasn't even concerned about philosophy or theology back then. I guess I was indoctrinated in it as a child, but either which way. So I told her, and she got so pissed. She like paid for my shot. She's like, enjoy your shot, and she just fucking dipped. I was like. What? It was so fucked. So that's one of those scenarios where you would be tempted to be like, yeah, I should have just lied. There's no way that being honest was better in that scenario. But that same chick ended up getting pregnant to some guy that, as far as I know, he's just not around. So like, must have been a similar scenario. Like they had a crush on each other and hooked up, and she wound up pregnant. And all I'm going to say is I was in no position to be a dad, and I would be furious if I had, I think our kid's like 13 or 14 now. If I had a son that was 13 or 14, or even 11 or 12, if that's where he's at, I don't know. If I had a son that was that age right now, maybe there's a chance that I would have shaped up and been there for him immediately, but I'm hard pressed. And I'm very glad that I don't have a baby mama and son who are estranged. So, that's one of those situations where actually making that decision, even though I didn't do it consciously based on the desire to be moral, the moral decision to be honest there actually did potentially save me from being in a a whole new situation. And again, you could argue that maybe if I would have got her pregnant, that I would have, shaped up and gotten my life together immediately. But I think there's a far larger chance that I would have been continued to struggle, or potentially even struggled worse, if that had happened before I had sorted all my issues out. Because like it took me till I was fucking 30 to be able to sort through my issues enough to like level out and get sober. So yeah. Anyways, I hope this has been helpful. I hope that if you think about sobriety, that you will consider looking into things like free will, faith, logic, and reason, because when you start to understand some of these concepts, it really changes your ability to think. And it's funny because people talk about IQ and it's like it's this natural thing that's ingrained in you, and maybe it is. Maybe some people are precluded from understanding certain things because of their cognitive abilities. Like, I'm not going to argue against that. But what I will say is I think there's a lot of people that are way more smart than they believe, than they act, and then they perform at. And when you start to understand some of these things and you're able to go from first principles through a rational chain of logic through a chain of logic to a rational conclusion, it's completely different. And this whole journey for me started with asking myself the question, like, can I even articulate what I believe and why I believe it? And I just realized how often I was contradicting myself. And learning the ability to have principles and to think rationally through a chain of logic to a rational conclusion, it's a game changer. And you'll realize that you've been going through this world being reactionary and not thinking at all. It's like we've all got thoughts going through our heads, so we think that we're thinking. But the reality is that just because there's words bouncing around in the old noggin doesn't mean that you're thinking. Just because you're having thoughts doesn't mean you're thinking, like it's truer words have not been said. So I hope that you will consider your choice to think about principles and to consider the ones that you do have, or the lack of principles. Where did they come from? What trauma installed them in you, or what person programmed you? Where did they come from? And do they serve you? Have they ever served you? And when you open up to the fact that perhaps everything you've ever learned or thought is wrong, and that perhaps or misunderstood. Some people hate Christianity. I was one of them. And it's like once I came to a new understanding, it was a much more gratifying experience. Like, even though I don't agree with Trinitarian Orthodox or necessarily, I guess, that's, the deeper part of pop theology in Christianity, I can still go to church without being resentful. I can still appreciate a message and I can respect people who choose to come to God through the Trinitarian theology as good Christians who are on their own journey, and I respect that. I respect them for being where they're at. So if you run into an atheist, ask them how they practice logic and reason without having free will. And if you are working through recovery or just trying to be a better person, consider how having faith in principles that you don't necessarily understand could be reframed from believing in a man that you can't see in the clouds who's judging you to a tool for self-liberation, for your own autonomy, for your own liberation from possession by the lower aspects of self. And consider that if you were to apply some of these principles over time, you might actually have different outcomes. Insanity is trying the same thing over and over and expecting new results, right? Anyways, have a good rest of your day. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can find me on Rumble as well. Cheers.